is it? What happened? So he said, what can I do, sire? I promised you that I will not attack, that I will not eat human beings and all that. So now you see my state. And then one very powerful sentence the wise man says, I never told you not to hiss. I did not tell you not to hiss. The idea is that there are times when hissing is enough to keep somebody at a distance. So you could have done that. So this is that discrimination between doing something and hissing. So you need not be angry, but you can show anger that way. You need not be a footstool or a rug where people will just walk over you and you will say, oh, real happiness lies in making others happy, so let me lie and let them be happy. It should not be like that. So one has to be very discreet and balanced in even interpreting Baba's messages, because that sometimes it could take a very not obnoxious, but it could take you a little away from what Baba is actually meaning. And time again we've been saying that every message of Baba or quote of Baba, we have to look at it from a very different angle of context, contextual. Under what circumstances, what was the environment, who were the people sitting before him, that those words were spoken or uttered by Baba. And you cannot generalize this for all times and under all circumstances. Of course, there are certain statements which are for all time and all circumstances. But there are certain messages, there are certain quotations which have to be looked at from a contextual point of view. So we need to use our discretion and discrimination in understanding, interpreting and applying Baba's words to our life. So that was the question. Now,
is faith in God essential? That depends on how you interpret faith. Some who have faith and believe in God lead a life without character and fail to make any spiritual progress, while there are others who do not even believe in God but lead such a noble life that they automatically come closer to God.
So basically, I remember a story where in one of the films called Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus talks about two sons. And one son, he will always say, yes father, I will do it, yes father. Very, very obedient, very, very disciplined, very, very good behavior. But ultimately he would not do any of those things which the father is asking him to do. And the other one, he in a sense cares a damn about what the father is saying. He's okay, that way. But actually he applies those principles in his day-to-day life, in his personal life. And then Jesus, he talks, now you decide who loves the father more, or whom does the father love more. So here in the same way, the questioner is asking, is faith necessary? Baba says it all depends upon what is the meaning of faith. There are people, when we say, oh, I am a follower of Meher Baba. What does it mean, follower of Meher Baba? You follow like that Vodafone sign, following everywhere or something. Or you follow him in his teachings, in his principles, I know I'm saying it, but I'm not doing it. I'm being very honest about it. Because each one of us have to understand that are we really following Baba's principles? That is very important. So your Baba says is that there is a person who says he has got a lot of faith in God, but his life is totally different from what God would have wanted him. And there's another who may not be a follower. What does it say? He may not even believe in God, but he leads a noble life. So what is important, is actual living the life which Baba would want us to live. That is extremely important, and I'm sure we all are endeavoring, we all are trying, we all are failing, we all are getting up, and we all are again trying. So that is the whole game, that we keep on trying and keep on trying over and over again. The trick is that not to fall in a manner that we don't rise again. We have to keep on rising. And in all that we do, the good, the bad, the ugly, as we say, we must keep Baba as our constant companion. We must keep him, irrespective of what we are doing, right or wrong. We have to keep Baba constantly as our companion. And then, by his grace, a time may come when, as Baba says, his will becomes our will, and then we in a sense, right now, what many of us may be doing is that we are in a sense compelling Baba to align himself to our will. Most of us, we want a certain thing, we have a certain desire, we want to fulfill that desire, and we keep on praying to Baba, and then Baba gives in, that way. So in other words, we are actually asking him to align his wish and his will towards us, what I want to do. But even in that, if we are genuinely loving Baba and genuinely keeping him as our constant companion, Baba willing, hopefully by his grace a time should come, where we have no independent will, or we have no individual will, and we say honestly that Baba, let thy will prevail, let your will be, not mine. So that is a gradual process, and I feel that we are all in that process, I suppose, unless somebody has already reached, I don't know. But the important thing I feel, this is my personal key, is that even though we are maybe asking his will to align with our will, we have to constantly keep him as our companion. That is very important, irrespective of whatever, and then his grace may fall, and then that would make all the transformation and the difference.
What is the goal of creation? To know the self as infinite, eternal existence, and to enable others to realize this same self.
Very important, and we have been doing this again over and over again, that everyone and everything is nothing but God. There cannot be anything other than God. The only difference is that those drop souls who have achieved Godhood or God realization or self-realization or Aham Brahmasmi can authentically say Anal Haq, Soham, I am that. They can say because they have consciously realized there is nothing but God and I am God. Whereas we are still in that state of intellectually we may know I am God, but experientially we do not know. In one of the sessions, I suppose in one of the Sahavasis, Baba had said, I don't know whether it was for Elizabeth or Norina or whosoever, words to the effect, that, for example, Mer Jyoti, who is she? She is God plus a bundle of samskaras is equal to Mer Jyoti. Simple. Now all you need to do is that God plus whatever that is there, that plus has to be eradicated. And the moment that plus is eradicated, what remains is only God. So in the process of the human being, what is important is not an accumulation or amassing something from without. Without means from outside. As if we are not sufficient. What is important, Baba says, is unfoldment from within. Spirituality is not an accumulation from without, it is an unfoldment from within. And when this unfoldment takes place, starts taking place and opens up, all that is not us is immediately eradicated, weeded out. Neti neti veda pukare, as we say in the Aarti. Not this, not this, not, I am not this, I am not that, I am not this, I am not that. So basically, so in short, everyone and everything is God, but in the original state of the beyond state, or Brahma state, Vara, whole Vara state, what Baba explains as state 1 in God speaks of God. God is, but consciousness is not. So the sole purpose of creation is the evolution of consciousness. It is only because of the evolution of consciousness that creation has taken place. So creation is exactly opposite of what God is all about. Now, in order to know light, you need to experience darkness. Basically, in order to have knowledge, you need to experience ignorance. So in other words, which I repeat several times, is that creation is nothing but a divine incubator in which the consciousness of the soul incubates and becomes whole and complete first in the first human form, and then becomes perfect in realization. So every aspect of creation has but one purpose, and that is to realize God. That is to make us answer the very first question, who am I? With the answer, I am God. So here Baba says beautifully, what is the goal of creation? To know the self as infinite, eternal existence. Infinite means that which has no boundary, no limitation, simit, unlimited, infinite. Eternal means always, was, is, and ever will remain. Existence means it exists. Anything that exists is God. The moment you give it existence, it is God. Nothing can be existing without it being God. So infinite, eternal existence. And then goes on to say, and to enable others to realize this same self. In other words, that is the, I suppose, in my understanding, that is the role of the Sadguru or a perfect master, not only to achieve that goal, but to help others to achieve the same goal. Because that only the perfect master or the avatar, who is the eternal perfect master, can do. It is not in the realm of the other 51 God realized ones, as we call it, perfect ones, because they may be Mazub or Salik and they may not make anybody perfect. So that is, so in other words, in Baba's superb message, the aim of life is to love God. Aim he has, that is the aim. And the goal of life is to become one with God. Finish. And the surest and the quickest way is to hold on to his Dharma. And keep on holding on to his Dharma, come what may, whatever we may be going through, the good, the bad, the ugly, the roller coaster ride, anything, just keep on holding on to his Dharma, and hopefully one fine day, when his grace descends, we will reach the goal. And one of the easiest way, I would not say easier because I don't know, I have not experimented with it, Baba says, is to take my name when you breathe your last. So all this unit test, prelims, and all that we are going through over the long, if at all we call it long, period of several years, 50, 60, 70 years, is to write that final examination. And it is an oral test, it is not a written test. And it is a very short test. It will be only for maybe 1 or 2 seconds, 3 seconds. What is the test? That when you breathe your last, when we breathe our last, what should come out of our mind, hopefully with heart and feeling, is Baba. Finish. The test is one and the examination is over. No more coming for the examination. And all that, this is my way of looking at it. All that we are doing, whether it be this, whether it be any other meeting, the drama, the dance, the elocution, is focusing on Baba all the time, in the hope, in the expectation that when we breathe our last, we will be able to remember him. Because that is the final. Why should, this is my way of looking at it, digressing a little bit, why should we be happy with smaller goals? Why should we be happy when Baba has said that the goal of life is to become one with God? Then why should we focus our attention on smaller goals? Like I want this. The desires are there, I am not saying no. They are okay. But why should we not go to the final goal with Baba himself, Baba as God in human form, as the highest of the high, as somebody whom we have accepted and acknowledged as, as the avatar of the age. Why should we not take his word for it? Why should we not take it as a challenge? Why should we not lagao our daav, as we say daav? We do daav lagate hai na? मटके में लगाते हैं, मटका खेलते हैं, घोड़े का रेस खेलते हैं, जो भी होएगा वो डाव ही लगाते हैं. So why not we लगाओ one डाव of this physical form in focusing upon Baba, irrespective of who we are, what we are doing, what we have done, right, wrong, forget, that is there. Forget in the sense, not that we should indulge, what I am saying, forget, we do not pay much attention to that, do not give so much of importance to what we are, who we are. Because many people say, oh, if I have to follow Baba, then I have to be very, very pure and very clean, and I should not do this, and I should not eat this, marghi nahi khane ka, murgi nahi ye, whatever. There are people who say this. By the time you clean yourself, you will go through about 50, 100 more lifetimes. Why do we bother about all these things when Baba has said that I am like an ocean and no amount of filth can pollute me? No amount of filth. And we are all filth. Let's put it very bluntly. So okay, theek, why don't we put that in Baba? Because he asks for it. He wants it. He wants that we should do it and keep on doing it in a manner that we keep connected with him, so that when the final exam comes, we remember him. So this is about creation.
How did the universe come about? Universe, if understood as created, has an entirely different meaning from our viewpoint that universe does not exist. Actually, it is only God who appears as the universe. But it is necessary for creation to have this dual idea of God and universe.
When we say that God is everyone and everything, then from the standpoint of that statement, what is universe? Universe is God. God playing the role of a stone, God playing the role of an animal, God playing the role of a vegetable, God playing chicken and mutton or whatever it is. So it is, so here Baba says very beautifully, see how beautifully Baba places universe if understood as created. Baba has said, that in truth it is God becomes the creation. The creator becomes the creation. And that is why in God speaks, the languaging is God in human form, God in animal form, God in vegetable form, God in stone form. Baba doesn't say stone. That means I am God and you are stone. God in stone form. That means it is only God in God in God in everything. Right? So, universe, if understood as created, which we now separate, if understood, has an entirely different meaning from our viewpoint, that universe does not exist. The viewpoint of those who have achieved the goal is that there is no objective universe. That universe is an extension of your own consciousness. That when there is no consciousness, there is no universe. Am I making sense? We are the Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh of the universe. When we get up in the morning, we create our own universe. Right? I don't know whether I said it here or whether I said it here or whether I said it in Pune just recently. Now somebody who is sleeping next to me, most of the time it is my wife, creates most of the time. Because sometimes I sleep alone. That is why. She creates her own universe when she gets up. I have created, so in other words, universe is an extension of your own consciousness. I create my own universe. If I am healthy, if I am wealthy, if I am rich, if I am happy, my universe is happy. Very good. If somebody next to me, I am not meaning her, somebody next to me, just to clarify, is not happy, is not rich, is suffering from so many aches and pains and all these things. Some income tax is after him or her, something is happening, whatever. When he or she wakes up, she creates or he creates her own universe, which is totally different from my universe. Simple as that. So I am the creator of my own universe, and right now we are all in what is known as the false awake state. We are all in the false awake state. We are the Vishnu, we are the preserver of that universe. Right? And when we go back to sleep and get into what is known as the sound sleep state or the deep sleep state, we withdraw that universe into our own consciousness. Am I right? So we became Mahesh, or the destroyer or the destructor of the dissolver of the universe. And that is why Baba has said that it is not that you exist in the cosmos, but actually it is the cosmos that exists within you. It is the cosmos, it is the creation which is existing within you. You are creating the universe and you are withdrawing the universe every single day. Am I making sense? So again, that means again, universe as an objective thing is non-existent. Here Baba says, from our viewpoint, that universe, which universe? The created universe does not exist. According to them, according to those who have realized, the created universe does not exist. That means it is only a Brahm, an illusion that the universe exists. Whereas actually universe is nothing but, as I said, an extension or a flashlight of your own consciousness. Then Baba says, actually, that means factually, that means in truth. Actually it is only God who appears as the universe. Actually it is only God who appears as the universe, which means the creator becomes the created, or the creator becomes the creature, which is the universe. But it is necessary for creation to have this dual idea of God and universe. In other words, it is necessary to have duality in order to achieve unity. It is necessary to play this game of beloved and the lover. Only then you can achieve oneness. Only then you can realize that the beloved himself was the lover, or the lover himself is the beloved at the end of the whole story. So since we are in the middle chapters of the story, we have to perforce play this game of duality and think of ourselves as Baba lovers, who is loving Baba as the beloved, and think of ourselves as separated from the universe, as the universe is an existing thing, but in truth or reality, it is a non-existing thing. Making clear?
Why do forces of evil predominate over forces of virtue? It is all in the scope of universal law. The suffering that appears so great is necessary for happiness, just as binding is necessary to experience freedom. Unless evil temporarily triumphs, happiness cannot be experienced. This universe is based on duality. Binding and freedom, good and bad, evil and virtue are interdependent. If only one aspect existed, there would be no interest or meaning in life. For the attainment of ultimate freedom and happiness, temporary victory of evil over virtue is necessary.
It is like if in the film there is no villain, then there is no maja in the film, isn't it? There has to be a villain, then you will feel excited, there is excitement, there is fear, there is tension, so in the same way, this so-called evil has a role to play. The so-called binding or bondage has an important role to play in order for us to experientially experience and appreciate freedom. Otherwise there would be no appreciation of freedom. Like the oft repeated story about a bird flying in the air, and we say to the bird, "Bird, you are free, you are so free." And the bird says, "What free? I don't know what you are talking about free." So what do? We catch the bird, put it in the cage and let it suffer, let it experience binding, let it experience what bondage is, and after that bondage is experienced, we again free the bird, and again the bird is free. The first time also it was free, now also it is free. But now it is able to experientially experience and appreciate what freedom is. So in other words, in order to appreciate freedom, bondage was necessary. So in order to have happiness, the so-called suffering or the so-called preponderance of evil over the good people or good things in life is necessary. That is what Baba says. So let us now read it. It is all in the scope of universal law. It is everything happens according to the universal law, according to the law of karma. The suffering that appears so grave is necessary for happiness. Otherwise, people will not appreciate experientially what happiness, we are talking about real happiness. We are not talking about the puppy happiness that we may be experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Baba talks about the bliss. Just as binding is necessary to experience freedom. Unless evil temporarily triumphs. Now we must remember the word temporarily. Now this temporarily may go on sometimes for a few hundred years. We do not know. But from the standpoint of eternity, that few hundred years or one yuga, if you call it a Kali Yuga, is nothing. It's just a dot. It's just a second compared to eternity. So when Baba says temporarily, the evil has to triumph. It has to be victorious. Happiness can, unless evil temporarily triumphs, happiness cannot be experienced. This universe is based on duality. So everything is based on duality. When Baba was asked once what is evil, beautiful reply of Baba was, there is no evil. It is only a lower degree of goodness. So from the standpoint of truth or Advait or unity or reality, there cannot be two. There is no duality. It's only one. So when he seizes, when all the seers, when all those who have become one with God and all those who experience the world as just a shadow or a dream or a nothingness, from that standpoint, there is no evil. There is only one. There is only God. That is the same thing as love. That is the same thing as goodness. That is the same thing as happiness. Whatever you call it. So whatever apparently is the opposite of these good things, apparently opposite, according to those who have achieved the truth, it is not an opposite, but it is the lower degree of that same good. It is a lower degree. So here, this universe is based on duality. Binding and freedom, good and bad, evil and virtue are interdependent. Obviously we have seen interdependent. If there is no light, or rather if there is no darkness, there is no appreciation for light. So in other words, light is dependent upon darkness in order to experience light as light. So in other words, the opposite is what it gives thos, astitva, to the so-called good things. And that is why Baba's most important book, God Speaks, the very first, the dedication is to whom? Dedicated to the universe, the illusion, the illusion that sustains the reality. The illusion to a person who is very so-called intellectual in that sense, how can the illusion sustain the reality? It is the reality that sustains the illusion. But Baba is given dedicated to the universe, the illusion that sustains the reality. Which means what? That had there been no illusion, the reality cannot be experienced as reality. In the Parakpar Parbrahma state, the reality was there. God was there. But there was no illusion, there was no creation. And therefore God could not experience himself as God consciously. And that is why the illusion was created, and he went through the entire process of illusion and then realized, I am God's state. So in other words, the so-called illusion, so-called darkness, so-called evil, so-called negativity is, in my understanding, a very integral part of the whole scheme of things. Only then we will be able to appreciate the other aspects, which is the positive aspect. If only one aspect existed, there would be no interest or meaning in life. There would have been no meaning in life. You would not be able to appreciate that goodness. If everybody is good, then there is no, now we are able to distinguish, oh, good, gooder, goodest. Okay, sorry. Good, better, best. So that is how we do. We are able to appreciate that because of the apparent opposite of it. And as I said, if there is no villain in a picture, then what? There is no charm in it. All sida, everybody is good, the end. So here Baba says if only one aspect existed, there would be no interest or meaning in life. For the attainment of ultimate freedom and happiness, ultimate, temporary victory of evil over virtue is necessary. That means when Baba says it is necessary, it also means that it is an important aspect of growth, and that if at all such things were to happen to us, which sure we all go through, we must accept it and appreciate it as an integral part and parcel of our own growth. That this is how it is.
Why does God, who is so kind and merciful, give suffering and pain to so many? God has nothing to do with this. God is all one in one. He is aloof and yet so attached that whatever is done is by His law of love and will. For example, when you sleep, you enjoy a dream, and the enjoyment is so intense that this dream of happiness does not wake you soon. But if in the midst of the dream you suddenly saw a snake, you would wake up at once. This is the law of God. God is neither merciful nor cruel in your awakened state. To know the exact meaning of the awake state, one has to experience the dream state. Dreams can be good and bad. In dreams, you can suffer or enjoy. But when you wake up, you find it is all a dream. But this dream should be so adjusted that it awakens you. Sacrifice, character, and selfless service help in awakening you.
Why does God, who is so kind and merciful, give suffering and pain to so many? So it is like we always keep on blaming God for everything. If we were to understand that God neither gives you happiness nor gives you suffering. Everything happens according to the law of karma. Everything happens according to what choices we have made in the past, and accordingly we go through whatever needs to be gone through. If at all God intervenes, if at all, it is only and only and only to buffer the suffering, to cushion the suffering, to help us out. I don't think, this is my ever God would intervene in our karma to give us more suffering. There is no reason for Him to do that. If at all He is intervening, most of the time He would just allow the natural flow of the law of karma to operate. But if at all, because of our connection with Him, because of our contact with Him, because of our prayers, because of our remembrance of Him, there are so many instances where we feel His very active participation in our life, His intervention in our life, and His intervention can only be for our positive growth from the soul's reckoning, not from the physical reckoning. It is like if I have diabetes and if I say, no God, I want to have lollipop morning, afternoon and night, then He would snatch away the lollipop from me, because that snatching may appear a cruel act on the part of God. But actually from the, as I say, soul's reckoning, it is good for me. So He would not hesitate to do that. But by and large, He doesn't intervene. And if at all He intervenes, it is only out of love. The Baba has himself said that all my actions are nothing but the outcome of my infinite love for each and everyone in creation. So all His actions are only based on love. So Baba says God has nothing to do with this. With what? Suffering and pain and all that. Nothing. God is all one in one. He is alone. In a sense, He is alone. It is like He is in everyone and everything, and He is also beyond everyone and everything. You see? That way. So here He is aloof and yet so attached that whatever is done is by His law of love and will. So God, if at all anything does, it is only done out of His law of love and will. That means he will only do what is good for you. He has never done, he is never doing, he will never do anything which is so-called harmful to you. He will only save us from anything. Right? For example, when you sleep, you enjoy a dream. And the enjoyment is so intense that this dream of happiness does not wake you up. Obviously, when we are in a happy dream, when we are having a happy dream, then there is no impetus to wake us up, right? But if in the midst of the dream you suddenly saw a snake, you would wake up at once. In other words, what Baba is trying to say is that all this what we are experiencing is nothing but a dream. And if in this dream something apparently wrong is happening, it is happening with the idea of awakening you and shaking you up so that you may introspect, self-reflect, go within yourself and find out why things are happening the way they are happening to me or to us, and try to sort out ways so that we can overcome them and in a sense realign ourselves to the law of truth. Now Swami is indicating that the time is up, so I think we can do this again next time.